Okay, so we are going through master class by Mochi and Mark Olson, and we started the first chapter last week, and we're still on the first chapter. The first chapter is deceptively simple, and I'll bring up the summary of it. And it deals with, it's called strategic visualization, and it tries to identify the strategies that you should employ, and primarily early on in the game, and the opening to the middle game. And so there's basically two strategies that we focus on at the early game. And as I mentioned before, Mishi mentioned this in his book Opening Concepts, but didn't really go into great detail on it. He mentioned it, probably a few examples, and left on. So it didn't really, it requires a lot more thought and examples than Michi had time to devote to it. And so Mochi has done that. We have a lot of examples. In fact, that's what we're looking at, because the basic concepts are pretty simple. You're going to start, and after a roll or two, you're going to try to identify the best strategy that you have as either a priming or a blitzing strategy. And these are, really kind of, early. You're not really in a full prime, you're not really in a full blitz yet when you're doing this, but that your formation is best set up to one strategy or the other in the most cases. In some cases, you might have a possibility of doing either, but in general, you can do one or the other. So the key features of this, and the process is, as I list here, is determining what you are doing, priming or blitzing, or what type of formation you have, then what your opponent has. And then based on those two things, you identify the correct strategy, and then based on your role, you try to follow the strategy. And this is kind of a higher order of thinking, in that you're developing the strategy, and then if you recognize the strategy, that usually keeps you from making blunders. Whereas often if you don't know what your strategy is, you consider plays that are completely outside of the strategy, and that's when you start making big blunders. So what is priming? What is blitzing? Quickly, points. Priming means points are not stacked, no deep points, and spares are well distributed. And we'll go our process. We're going to look at a number of examples, and we're going to first identify whether we're priming, whether we have a priming formation or a blitzing formation, and then whether our opponent has a priming or blitzing formation. So that's priming. Blitzing is your points are stacked, you have deep points and deep spares. Again, we covered a little bit in an opening concept, but now we're focusing strictly on priming, on a strategy. So what do? Well, if you're priming, your opponent is priming, you want to split. You always split into the prime, your opponent's prime, and go for a higher anchor. This makes the prime much more difficult for your opponent if you do that. And then you're also on your side of the board, you're going to try to make your own prime, and making your points in order. And so you're not going to go for deep points and things like that. If you're priming and your opponent is blitzing, you don't want to split your back checkers. That plays right into his strategy. Any anchor is fine. The lower anchor is okay. Usually we're trying to get the high anchor, but that's to avoid the prime. If your opponent is blitzing, then the lower anchor is better than no anchor. And we're going to slot. We'll get into that, what that means. We're going to slot to extend the prime generally. If our formation is blitzing, we want to blitz, which is attack if possible. If we can't attack, then we want to escape the back checkers if possible. Usually we're up in the race. We're not going to slot necessarily, because we want to attack, and not let our opponent get a chance to slow us down. With a blitz, you need both roles to make a point generally. Okay, if you're blitzing against blitz, you're going to attack if possible, anchor wherever you can. That's to counteract your opponent's blitz, and then you don't give up your anchor, at least until the blitz is complete, or you're left with no other choice, or that's you've gone from a blitzing to a mutual holding game, and then you need to your head race, you need to race. So we'll get into all that. So let's just continue on with the practice. We did about 5 examples last time. We're going to try to do 5 more. So this one. So what do we do? First step is, what's the strategy employed here? Or what's our formation? Is it a blitzing formation or a priming formation? And what is ours and what is our opponent? So hopefully you can, we practice this so that it should be easy to see, or become easy to see. So we're white in the bottom. What are we doing? And this should be hopefully clear. Blitzing or priming?
Priming.
Priming. Why? Now, why do you say that?
Because he's already got an anchor. Black's already got an anchor on our 2 point.
Okay. So let's look at
it's hard to blitz if your opponent's already got an anchor.
Right. Well, that's true. However, there's a key feature here that you should automatically say, if you've done this, you're not priming, and that's is you made a deep point. You made the ace point. You cannot prime having given up 2 checkers to the ace point. So your strategy here is blitzing. Now your blitz, it's not a very good blitz because at this point, because your opponent is anchored. But you've got 3 points and a deep point. You can't prime. What's Black's formation? What's their strategy?
Well, definitely prime, because White's got on the anchor on the 1 point.
Yeah, well, it's probably, again, when we're looking at our strategy, we're looking mostly at what our own position is. So Black has the characteristics. He's made the 5 point. His spares are distributed fairly well. He's got here to make the bar point. He's got some that can make the 4 point. He doesn't have any of the absolute blitzing. He hasn't made a deep point. His points are not stacked. Again, I would, if you want to really get into this, get this. This is I have this on my Google Drive, but the first step is always to go through and identify what's going on. And so here you have priming, points are not stacked. It's Black here, no deep points, spares well distributed. If we look at, sure, cut this down. So okay, Black, points not stacked, no. No deep points, correct. Spares well distributed. Well, there's, here's 4 spares, pretty well distributed. If we look at blitzing, points are stacked, have deep points and deep spares. Okay, now here we don't really have stacked points, but we have this deep point, and that's a telltale sign, particularly if you have a deep point past the anchor. That's your only real strategy here is blitzing. Now, keep in mind that this is not a very good blitz if you've made a points behind the anchor. So it's a blitzing formation, but you're not really going to blitz here. You're going to try to do something else. Probably you're going to try to race here because you're up in the race, and maybe and you can't really attack with Black has the anchor. But certainly, and it's of course kind of an artificial dichotomy between priming and blitzing. If the choice is either priming or blitzing, this is clearly blitzing because of this. Now, blitz, you may not, effectively, you may not be able to blitz, particularly if Black keeps his anchor, but it's still the formation that you're in, and it helps you determine what to do. And in particular, for this case, this is, I'll give you a warning, the proper move in this case, I would never have gotten. So what do you think is the proper move with this example?
13, 7, 6, 5.
24, 18, 24, 23.
Yeah, Jake. And so, yeah, so that actually is the correct move. I think virtually everyone would make this move
Right.
because this is the obvious move. That's what you always do with the 6-1, and it makes a lot of sense because you're making a strong point, but and here's where and this is this is where this the strategic visualization kind of shines, is that if you look at it, you're blitzing and your opponent is priming. What do? Well, you don't prime. This is a prime, and look at it after the roll. You're pretty much stripped, and there's not much you can. You're not gonna be able to hold this prime very long. So the answer is okay. We can't. Our prime isn't going to work because we have a blitzing strategy. So what do you do if in a blitzing strategy when you can't blitz? Well, we're up in the race, so we race. And so we come out, the 6 comes out. And then the only reasonable one is from 24 to 23. Yeah, very unusual situation. It's almost automatic to make that bar point. And you really have to think this through to come up with it, to come up with the right play.
So Gary, if you make the bar point, then does that change White's strategy to a priming strategy then?
Well, you have the prime. It's going to be. It's hard to have you've got 2 strategies working then, and neither one of them is very good. So you've got the blitzing strategy because you made the ace point and you don't have enough. You don't have enough ammunition to make a prime, but you've got the prime. And this isn't a bad prime, but you can't. You're not going to be able to develop it. Okay, because what are you going to do in your next move? You're going to, probably come up from the back or down from the midpoint, and it's going to be really hard to make this 5-point with what the ammunition that you have, and so it's likely to fail. You're gonna, if you didn't run out this time, you're going to have to run out next time. You may not be able to, and so that's why you have to run out now. So this is a tricky one. I don't know that maybe now I would get this right if I saw it, now that I've talked about it and seen it. But this is a really hard one. But again, this is where the strategy works. One other interesting thing, we looked at this a couple weeks ago and it's kind of interesting. So let's suppose that you came out with a proper play, and then Black rolled a what does he roll? And
Maybe
it makes the bar point. Okay, and you're on the bar. So our chances of winning here are 38%. And let's look at another situation where we did not come out. We made the bar point. And our chances of winning here are 36%. So the odd thing about this is that, okay, here we're not on the bar. You would think that being on the bar would be not being on the bar would be better. In this case, it's not. And the reason is, against the prime, now Black has a pretty, a decent prime. Against the prime, you must make the advanced anchor as soon as you can. It's much easier to make an advanced anchor from the bar here, given that there's a checker here, than it is when you're both checkers are on the ace point. And so that gives you that's why this is better off than being stuck on the ace point. And again, that's against Black's best rule. Very Interesting situation. Again, hard to see it initially because it's not used to, usually you can make a point that's a strong point that you want to make. Usually you make it, but it goes against the strategy. So you've got to follow the strategy. All right. Next one. Or two. So, first step, what are we doing? What's the opponent doing? Well, ours should be
We
fair.
as white are definitely priming.
We're behind, yeah.
Yeah, we're white here at the bottom is priming. We have a nice prime for it's broken, but it's nice prime, no stacks, no deep points. Yeah, we're also behind in the race. And typically, Mochi doesn't emphasize it that much, but the race is usually important. And typically, if you're priming, you're behind in the race, and you would rather be behind in the race because of the timing aspect of it. You want your opponent to run past you and crack his board while he's stuck in the back. So yeah, so we're definitely a prime. What about black?
Well, he has pairs on the 6 points, so that looks like a blitzing position.
Yeah, so there are two signs. The spares, the stack here looks blitzing. Also, the 3 point generally is a blitzing point to me. It's hard to, if the question is, can black make the bar point and the 5 point? Well, probably not both. We could get a double one or something like that, and that would do it. But with the ammunition he has, it's unlikely that he's going to make both points, and so he's not really going to get the prime. So really, he's blitzing here because he has a deeper point and he has the stack here. So this is prime versus blitz. Now, what do we want to do in prime versus blitz? Well, question one: do we want to split?
No.
That's right. No, we don't split into the blitz. Now, if you remember the splitting rules, they sort of give you rules, but without putting it into context of the strategy context. So the splitting rules, it's mixed here. Your opponent hasn't split or made an advanced anchor. That says you don't need to split. Got 10 checkers in the zone, says you shouldn't split with 10 in the zone. It's a blitzing position, so don't split against that. However, the 8 point is stripped. And so that, there's a little bit of a conflict there. So it's not clear just by the splitting rules. But if you apply the prime versus blitz rules, we know that we don't want to split against the blitzing position. So what's the best move there? Now that we know that we don't want to split, what else?
13-7.
2 down from the
13-7 or 2 down, yeah. So the question is, which is better?
You don't give a direct hit.
Like
Yeah.
13-7. If black doesn't get a 6, then you got a 5 prime potential.
Yeah. And the question is, is this worth the risk? And sometimes it is. We'll see some positions where you do come down and slot this. In this case, it's not. I think the reasoning here is that you give black an out, because black has a decent board, a 3 point board. He is blitzing. Now you're going to be on the bar. You give him, you're playing into that for him blitzing. Okay, granted that this is better for making the bar point next time, and then if you do make it, you got a really strong position. But this is also pretty strong, and you're not giving up the direct shots. So these are tricky. It's not a simple rule. You kind of have to weigh them. But here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 checkers that can make the bar point. And I include the point here because you don't want to break the 8 point, but if you get a 2-1, you want the bar point over the 8 point. The same with a 4-1 or something like that. Okay, so it is in this case it is split. Here's now I came up with some other
Gary,
example.
can I ask you what if
Sure.
there would be any difference if you had the extra one on black 6 point on the 8 point?
Yeah, so now there might be. So is this splitting or priming position? Well, it's a better priming position than it was. Because now you're not stacked. And now you've got more numbers that make well, you still have the same numbers that make these points, but you've got more that make the bar and more that make the 5 point and leave you better off. So like a 3-1, you could have made you could make the 5 point with the 3-1 here, but you've stripped your 8 point. With a 6-1, you could also have made the bar point, but you would have stripped your 8 point as well. But you still got the 3 point made, and so you're still probably, I would probably call this in a blitzing position, just because these points are hard to make. In terms of going back, so in this one, this is tricky. So I would always go back to the splitting rules. Now, do we want to split? Now we don't have any sign to split because you still have 10 checkers in the zone. Still hasn't split his back checkers or made an advanced anchor, and now the 8 point is not stripped. So I would think that the answer is the same as before. Yeah, 2 down, pretty much the same result.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, the prime versus splitting it's a little bit tricky because these aren't exactly obvious. They're not always obvious. Now, this should be obvious, I think, down here, that this is a priming position. This is less obvious. Okay, this is just some of the variations that I thought of to see. Yeah, what do you do with a 6-5 here? And the default is almost always to run out.
Right.
So, and obviously you can guess that if that's the default and it's not, and if that were the right answer, I wouldn't find this problem interesting to show to you. So what is the right answer?
Bring 2 down, I guess.
Yeah, and that's correct. Well, it's not by much. But again, this is so, this strikes me as so bizarre. I would almost automatically run out. But you see, we're way behind in the race, and this is a racing move. So we're sort of playing into his black's game plan, black strategy here by leaving a blot, because black wants to attack. Now you've given him a chance. And again, it's close for the same reasons that you don't want to slot the bar point here, because of black proposal 6. That's a big risk to take, because now you're in trouble with black proposal 6. One other variation of this one. Six, 2. We've got the same situation, prime versus blitz, when we're behind in the race. So do we come out? Or do we come down? Or do we come down with 2?
Because the 8 point is stripped, I would do 24-16, I think.
Yeah, run out. Well, okay, the idea the 8 point is stripped, and the idea is that black would then use the ace to hit you and break his 8 point. So I think if you're going to come out, you would come out and down. Otherwise, the fact that it's stripped doesn't really matter. Well, but let's look at the answer. And it's 2 down here, or just come in. And it's 2 down now because your strategy is to prime. So now, okay, this is risky, but it does support the priming strategy, and you've got 2 spares to cover it. Actually,
Yeah.
3, you got the 8 point.
Yeah.
And if you were going to come out, it's come out and down. Again, if this is the reason that you're going to split, when you run past it, then you've kind of defeated your reason for splitting, because now black is not going to break his 8 point to hit.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit worse. But again, the strategy, is prime versus blitz. Do the play that supports the prime. And sometimes it comes out to be really weird to do that. Okay. Some more here. So what's the strategy? Well, white, what are we doing? What's our formation?
Well, you're ahead of the race, so I guess you come out to the 20 point.
Okay, but the process here is identify the formations, and then based on that tells us what
Oh, yeah.
strategy is. So are we priming or blitzing in this formation?
We're blitzing.
We're blitzing. Why? Because we've got two spares here, we got a stack, and we got a deep point. For the most part, the 3-point considered a deep point. So yeah, we're blitzing. What about black?
He's priming.
Yeah, black's got a priming strategy.
Yeah.
We're up low play spares, no deep point. So what's the answer then that we come? Obviously, we're going to come in on the ace. Do we come out with a 4, or do we come down? Well, if our opponent is priming, well, if we're blitzing, we want to attack, but we can't attack. And we can't escape a back checker. So
we have to stay where we are. We have
Yeah.
to stay on the 1 points and then 13-9.
Okay, well, let's move the 1. So we can split or we can come down. But if we're playing against a blitzing or a priming strategy, what do we want?
You need to come up to the prime.
Yeah, you need to split into the prime, even though it's ugly.
Yeah.
That's the strategy. And again, this is a tough one because you look at the splitting rules. Again, when you're coming out the bar and you roll an ace, you now have the option of splitting or not splitting. So the splitting rules will tell you, let's see, black does not have an advanced anchor, it has not split, so that says don't split. You're not well blocked, so that says don't split. Black has 10 in his own, so all that says don't split. But the answer is split. And why is the answer split? Because because black has a priming strategy going, and if you don't split now, you're going to feed into it. You need to make an advanced anchor.
Gary, one point is that black, if black rolls a 1-3-4 combination, they're going to make that point whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
And if they make it and you've got 2 checkers stuck back on the 24, you're in a pretty desperate situation. And if you're on the bar, it's not too likely, but you could roll a 3-2 and make the 22 point or the 2-1.
Yeah, I don't know whether I didn't check on this one, but yeah, I mean, often it's better to be on the bar to make some sort of advanced anchor than it is to be stuck with 2 checkers on the ace point, because then the only things double 2s and double 1s are the only points, or the only rolls that give you the an advanced anchor, and double 1. Well, but either one will give you the 3-point, which is good. Whereas if you're on the bar, well, you've got a 3-2, a 2-1. Even if you roll a 1, that's not great, but it's something. So there are more rolls that give you the anchor. Now, obviously, it's dangerous because you could also fan, and that would be a big problem. But anyway, that's the theory behind it. Again, here's another case where I'm a big advocate of the splitting rules, but here's another case where this approach gives you the better answer. I would say too that this isn't a big blunder to if you came down, and that's because part of it is none of the other splitting rules tell you to split. So you've got this is kind of a, a tough situation. Okay. Okay, so what do we got going on here? Are we blitzing or priming here?
Well, we're priming.
And why do you say that?
Because we have a priming formation and we're behind in the race.
Yeah, we are behind in the race. Well, yes. We do have a stack here though. So this is an odd situation. We don't have much going on. We haven't, we don't have any points, so it's hard to say it's prime, but we don't have a deep point. But we do have spares that are well distributed. I don't remember what you call this one, so I'm going to check. One and this is 9. Yeah. Yeah, he did call this a priming position because and even despite the stacks, I think it's we don't have a deep point and our spares are pretty well distributed. So this is a pretty weak prime because we don't have a prime. We've got 2 points to the 6 and the 8, which you kind of start with that. So but it does consider this a priming position. And black, black, what is this? What does black have?
Blitzing.
Blitzing.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously 3-point stacks here, a deep spare. This is a little bit of a better distributed spare, but between the 3-point and the stacks here and the deep spare, this is a blitzing position. So 6-1. What do we do? Well, we're playing blitz.
I like 13-7-6-5.
Yeah.
So
So
24-18, 6-5, I agree.
you like 24-18? Okay.
Yeah, and
So
6-5.
prime against the blitz.
Oh, 13-7-6-5.
13-7-6-5. Okay. Prime versus blitz. Let me bring it up here. Prime versus blitz. We're priming, opponent is blitzing. Okay. Never split your black checkers. So by this rule, 24-18 is out. Lower anchors are fine. You want a slot. So slot, what can we slot? We could slot this. We could slot the bar point. So based on that, we're not going to come out. We're going to come down. We're going to do this. So what's the best 6 to play? So the options are pretty much come down, slot the bar, and that sort of is within the game plan, or come 11-5 to kind of even out your spares to make it deeper, make the 4-point possibly, or even the 3.
One point about coming down 13-7 is that nearly all 6s are good for him. 6-2 makes the 4-point, 6-1 makes the 18-point, 6-3 makes the 18-point, 6-5 runs, 6-4 makes the 4 as well as 6-2, double 6s. It
Those are all good points. So this is a tough one. We'll look at the answer, and the answer is, that's not that. Ignore that. I moved the checker, which makes a different play.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna do.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But so it's really kind of a toss up here for all the reasons that we said. The problem with this play is a 6 for black, is very bad for us. We go back further in the race. We lose a chance to develop our prime later on. And so But, for all the reasons why it was good, we slot the priming. If we get this next time, we have a very strong priming position and we've got a lot of spares to cover it. Sixes, fours and ones, that's pretty good. So it's a kind of a high risk, high reward play, but they're about the same. And again, as Karen pointed out, you got good sixes anywhere, a lot of good sixes. Again, 6-2 there, 6-1 makes the 2-point, or the bar point, probably you make the bar point, 6-3. 6-5 runs out, and black is up in the race, so that's a good roll. Double sixes play well too.
Well, what I'm thinking is that if we do get hit, we might make a better anchor, but we're still keeping the 1 point in case he blitzes us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you make the better anchor, you're going to use it from the 1 point.
No,
But
we,
all those are true. Yeah, all those are true.
we
Black
might get
doesn't-
a 5-4, 4-3. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, or even a 2-1. Makes it advances the anchor a bit. So anyway, tough decision here, but the key thing is to not split, is to not come out. Any movement from the back, blunder. So yeah, don't split. Okay. All right, so what do we got going on here?
Jeez. No,
Well,
you're supposed to prime, I guess. But you have a blue with
yeah, this is a tough. I mean, you started a prime, but we have a deeper point. And if you make the 3-point early on, it's very hard to fill in these 2 points.
Right.
And we're not going to be able to do it. So this is considered a blitzing position. What about black?
Blitzing.
Yeah, black is clearly blitzing too. Also has the 3-point
Yeah.
and also has a blot on the 2-point. So it's blitzing versus blitzing. I don't think we've looked at one of those before, so let's review the strategy if it's blitzing versus blitzing. So we're going to attack if possible, but we can't. If we could hit this one, we couldn't. Black has still got his anchor, so we can't attack. Escape back checkers if possible. We can't really escape. I guess we could run one out, but that's not really an escape. Do not slot. Oh, I'm sorry. This was priming.
Yeah.
Attack if possible. Anchor wherever we're already anchored, and don't give up your anchor. Okay, so that answers that. Do we want to run out? No, we want to keep our anchor. So what's left?
I don't know, making the 2-point.
Yeah, make the 2-point.
Yeah, I mean, we're not left with any really good answers here. So
At least we got a 3-point board then compared with black's 3-point board.
yeah. We are blitzing, so an extra point in a blitz situation, a point is a point, and it's a point ahead of black's anchor, so that's the best move. There's not not a terribly constructive role for us, but that's the best we can do with it. The alternative is 2 down. Obviously we leave the blot here, and that's not good. And running out is not good either. Black's going to hit us with an ace or a 5 or a 2. And then we've got some real problems. So again, a typical play, but it's blitzing versus blitzing. Can't achieve any of the top blitzing objectives, but we can make a point. So let's make the point. All right, last one for today. Hmm. 5-4. And here's another tricky one where it's not clear to me. Not immediately, obviously, what we're doing here. What's white's formation?
I don't know, I only think about hitting two.
Yeah. Well, let's go through the method. What are we doing with white? Are we blitzing or priming here? And this is a tricky one because we made the 5 points, so that's good. But we've got a stack here that says blitz. Our spares are not really, I mean, we have a spare here, so it's not really well distributed, but again, it's not stacked either. We don't have a deep point.
Got more choice of priming than you have of blitzing.
Well, once you bring down where are you going to put the 5? You got to bring the 5 down from the 13 point. And at that point, you definitely have a blitzing formation.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
would play 13-5 and then 6-2.
it's a position you have to play as you roll. So for me, this is hit twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah, and that maybe, Michi doesn't say that, but that might be the best approach is, I think we can kind of go either way here. There's signs to go either way. Now, we do have 10 checkers in the zone, which is kind of a blitzing position. We are up in the race. So that sort of signifies blitzing. But also, we have a single checker back. So, we're not going to make an anchor. All we can do is escape. So that's also tends to be a blitzing indication. So I think it's not immediately obvious, but if you think it through a little bit, this is more blitzing than priming. Now, what about black?
Priming.
Black is gonna attack us. That's
Yeah,
why
he's priming. He doesn't have enough to blitz.
Yeah, so and this is also difficult because black is in a similar situation. He's got a stack here and no spares anywhere. But you can't really call this prime because it's very hard to make this prime other than with by breaking the 8 or the 7. So now Michi does call this a priming position. And Mochi says it doesn't actually. Mochi says it doesn't matter what position it is because white's position is screaming to attack. So we'll go with that. So anyway, so attack. So how do we attack? What's the best way to attack here? Well, obviously we would like to. This would be a good time to have escaped the back checker, but we can't do that.
I think it's good to halve black's rolls. So next rolls. So I think 13-8, 6-2.
Yeah, 6-2. Okay, so that's one option. What's the other option?
You can hit twice.
Hit twice from the 6 point. Yeah.
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 I don't know.
Yeah, so this is a tough one, and I have to say, and the answer is to hit twice. And it's actually often correct to put an extra one on the bar, even if it leaves an extra shot, because as Mochi points out this play, if you count the shots, I think it comes out to 16 shots, 11 directs, double ones, 4-1 and 3-1. So that's 16 shots. This play, there are 20 shots. So you're giving up 4 extra shots. Okay, so that's now often 4 extra shots is a big deal. Mochi kind of blows this off and says there's only 4. Sometimes 4 is a lot, sometimes 4 is only 4. But I think the more compelling reason is if black misses here, then white is really better off, is in a very, very strong position. Now, obviously, if black hits, then it's not so great. But Mochi's argument is that the upside here is far greater with 2 on the bar, and black may not hit them. And 50% of the time black doesn't. And and 20, also over 50% of the time, black misses on at least one by rolling a 5 or a 6. So
Hey, Gary, do you mind moving the blot on our bar point to their midpoint, their blot, just to see if that makes a difference? Because I thought that was a positive that we had an extra one to hit.
yeah,
If that
that's
changes.
interesting. Yeah,
I would think this makes it less compelling to double hit. But I don't know. I'm
but
curious.
so the alternative that you had that's more reasonable now is 2 down, like this.
What about 13, 8, 6, 2?
Okay, you have that, yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't make a difference. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I would, to me, the hitting 2 is just as good as this or better. So let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so this hitting 1, and these are about the same.
Mm-hmm.
So the same idea. So I guess now the only 4 extra hits is not quite as bad as the only 4 before. Well, and then, in this case, in the other case, with black here. So yeah, these are virtually identical. With black here, you hit 1 and you can come out and make the advanced anchor. Whereas if black is here, you can't. It's hard to make the advanced anchor. You can't come out if you roll a 6. You can't get the advantage of that. A 6 is not a good roll.
Gary, I'm sorry to complex it for you, but when you hit twice like that, isn't that what Michi refers to as a double tiger? And
Yeah.
aren't there a whole bunch of specific rules and thoughts that pertain to a double tiger outside of all this blitzing versus
Yeah.
priming?
Yeah, the main one though is attacking with 10 is strong and attacking with 8 is weak. So here we've got 10 in the zone. So from Michi's double tiger rules, you've met his double tiger rules to hit to do the double tiger. Okay, so that's the last one for today. Let me turn the recording off.